is here for you.
Hi, my dear Astro family. So I made a video about Saturn transit in the sign of Aries through all 12 signs, but for some reason the Taurus rising sign disappeared. And I'm not too sure why. Well, because Saturn is transiting your 12th house, so it became, or it remained really secret information, right? But hopefully, in this video, I'm going to be able to give you some insights about Saturn in the 12th house in the sign of Aries. First of all, um, what I want to mention here is with this transit that I did make a very intense 12 house series webinar where I spoke about Saturn in the 12th house a lot. So I would be able to talk about it for hours. But here I'm just going to be giving you a summary in about 10 minutes because obviously it is a lot of information. But Saturn is connected to the 12th house. It has got planetary joy there. And planetary joy indicates that actually you can make this position super good for you if you work with it. If not, then this could be a disastrous placement. So on one hand, Saturn in the 12th house is going to talk to you about karmic cleansing. You're going to have to be looking at your family legacy. You're going to have to be diving deep into the subconscious, and you're going to have to do a lot of clearance there. Because Saturn is the planet of structure. It's kind of like you have to restructure your subconscious mind a little bit. There are pieces of information there that is absolutely BS, and they need to be rewritten. They need to be removed somehow because it's affecting your belief system. And often, even this position can indicate, especially if you believe in past lives, that you're going to have to be revisiting your ancestry line. You're going to have to go there, forgive yourself, I don't know, 5 lifetimes ago, having to forgive your mom 5 lifetime ago, and so forth, so that you can move on. But this is also about karmic patterns. So noticing that we are all, like each member of the family, have been doing the same things all over again. So this is the house of unresolved issues that has been passed down from generation to generation. And with Saturn, we're going to have to kind of rewrite the story here. Also, this house is called as the self-undoing, right? And maybe this is something to do with like self-undoing. I don't like this word, to be frank, because what does that really mean? Well, for me, what it means is that you are meant to be somehow crystallizing your fears. You are meant to be naming somehow some of your self-sabotaging behaviors, and you're going to have to replace them with something better. You're going to have to be able to face the consequences of your past actions as well. The 12th house is past, Aries is about actions. So here there is this karmic debt that you have to be paying. So be prepared for it. And often, this is not just this lifetime, this is something to do with previous lifetimes, or not even sometimes your own actions, but the actions of others around it as well. I usually say with the 12th house, it's not a good time, by the way, to do anything with like starting something new. It's very much about working through the existing projects, kind of like making them a little bit better, but not necessarily wanting to make something look perfect though. Both Saturn and the 12th house have got the tendency to do the job in a perfect way. Aries is like, oh, come on, it's getting boring. Let's move on from that. Why do we have to do all over something all over again? So it's going to be important that you have got structure, you pay attention to your time management, and you do things properly, but not necessarily getting bogged down with it. And also, in a way, it tells you that it's time to isolate, it's time to do the introspection. It's about understanding that solitude and withdrawing from society, withdrawing from people, retreating from mundane responsibilities are not always bad. This could actually talk to you about retirement as well. So, meaning that potentially you're going to have to do a lot of reflection on whether what you are going to be doing after retirement, because Aries is an action-oriented sign. So it doesn't want to just be sitting at home. We're going to have to be doing something instead. And I also believe that being lonely or being in a bit of a solitude is not necessarily always a bad thing. It's like having to be able to be alone. And sometimes you're going to have to walk out of the lives of others as well. Where does that lead us? It's going to bring you a lot of spiritual growth. It's going to help you understand your own inner world. Now, what's also super interesting, and this could be a bit of a challenge for you, Taurus. On one hand, that we are talking about the house of losses, the house of endings. And then Aries is the house of beginnings. So it looks like you're going to have to make sacrifices if you want to start a new life. You're going to have to be leaving something behind to be able to start fresh. There is no new beginning without a loss. Basically, that would be the message there. And sometimes we need to let go of things that are outdated willingly. Because in the sign of Aries, often we get forced as well. So, because we are talking about the fourth quadrant of the chart, imagine a chart, and then from the 10th to the 12th house, this is the fourth quadrant. The 12th house is actually connected to vocation as well. So often we're going to have to give up the work. We're going to have to prepare to gain certain type of knowledge, spiritual understandings, and so forth, so that you can start fresh, for example, in a couple of years' time when Saturn will be moving into your first house. But we all must experience this spiritual development. And often we also forget with Saturn that Saturn is a highly spiritual planet. But it also says, just think about the glimpse, right? It looks like that. And there is a kind of like a cross on top, that spirituality has got its own limits. We still have to be able to remain on the ground as well. And this is another potential problem because the 12th house wants to be flying. That's why we get used to drinking or taking drugs or painkillers and so forth, because we want to numb the pain. And Saturn actually is teaching you here that we're going to have to understand that spiritually, and then we're going to have to drag it down on the ground so that it manifests right in front of our feet. And yes, there could be delays when it comes to Saturn as well, like delays, for example, when it comes to, let's say you want to open a yoga studio. There could be, or you want to open your spiritual business practices. There could be certain type of delays there. But actually to get in touch with your inner world, that those yoga and spiritual practices and meditation and all those type of things, we're going to have to do them on a regular basis because Saturn represents regularity. And also, I mean, the 12th house, we can experience increased expenditures as well. You might be wondering, Viktor, 12th house connected to finances. I mean, just think about the connection between the first and the second house. We've got a semi-sextile there. But between the first and the 12th house, we also have got a semi-sextile. So while the second house is very much to do with the ways you make your money, the 12th house is the way, like your expenditures, the way you lose it. So therefore, this could indicate increased expenses. It could indicate that you're going to have to spend money on hospitalization, the partner's health situation, because the 12 is 6 from the 7th. uh, you're gonna have to kind of like spend a little bit more money on your mental health. Or you might experience certain type of setbacks when it comes to travel opportunities. You kind of want to be on a remote island. You want to kind of like just soak up the sunshine and read in a book on an island, and you don't want to be surrounded by so many people. That could be also a topic here that might be coming up. So for me, the 12th house Saturn is often about having to figure out some underlying health issues, unfortunately. Just to give you an example here, when Saturn went through my 12th house 4 years ago, I figured out that I had high blood pressure, diabetes, and so forth. And the doctor said that it's kind of like a miracle that you are still alive because I didn't take any medications for it. And then with Saturn, I had to fix those. Something that got swept under the carpet, I did not take care of it before, and then I had to be doing that. So often this is going to come to the surface with Saturn because Saturn is about crystallization. I mean, some people are, or actually, Saturn here can represent that the reason why you won't be able to work is due to certain type of health issues or health issues of others as well. But also the message here is that you just don't, it's not only the physical body that you have to take care of, but your emotional and mental well-being are just as part of your medical profile as the physical body. Now, often also you hear that the 12th house is something to do with hidden enemies. Um, when you hear the word enemy, usually you think of, oh yeah, someone is trying to backstab me, and that's a possibility. But the 12th house is so close to the first house. So what it means is that you are your worst enemy. And you are kind of like, this is where the self-sabotage comes into the picture. That's where you kind of like create your own limitations. So you need to be becoming aware of how you kind of like ruin your own life, and you're going to have to take action on that. Aries is kind of like a surgical removal. I'm going to have to cut those poisons out of my life. So, and Aries, it's about initiation. It's about sitting in the driving seat. So I'm not going to allow others to kind of remove that scar of my own, the grief and sorrow. I'm going to be actually doing that. I'm going to do it for myself, not for others. And that's super important also. This is also telling you that it's time to confront your fears, your insecurities. Those need to be named. Those needs to be brought to the surface. Those needs to be kind of like crystallized. Give them name. I'm afraid of a spider. So give it a name. Let's call it Johnny, not fear anymore. Because you might be feeding your mind even with more like anxiety just hearing the word fear. Call it Johnny or Susan or whatever you want to, and speak to Susan. Speak to that Johnny. And then make friends with those fears. Because with Saturn in the sign of Aries, the challenge is that you can have a lot of insecurities. There is that inner child within you, which is kind of like throwing itself on the floor when it doesn't get something. And Saturn says, grow up, you know, talk to that inner child so that it's not in pain anymore. So we are meant to be redefining of who we are. We are meant to be giving a more of a solid structure to our personality. We're gonna have to initiate, we're gonna have to use that masculine side of Aries. And when I talk about masculinity, it's not necessarily gender related, right? So I'm talking about action orientation. And you're going to have to discover what you want from life. Because once Saturn moves into your first house in 2.5 years' time, then you can actually manifest those. Without doing those, it can, Saturn, and I don't want to scare you, but it can bring you a lot of medical issues later on. It's all about doing little bits and bobs every single day, and having to plan it out also is super important. I think it's about discovering your inner authority type of figure. So learning financial discipline, managing your increased expenses could be a topic. Past karmic endeavors that you're gonna have to be kind of like restructuring, understanding, and even letting go. I think you're gonna have to prioritize your emotional, physical, and mental well-being all at once. And also, this definitely offers you the opportunity to go through a rebirth. So, guys, this is my intake on a very brief one on Saturn going through in the sign of Aries in your 12th house. Enjoy. See you soon. Bye bye.
Every sign and every house, a journey starts, and we allow the universe so vast and true. Astro Viktor, it's here for you.